So welcome back to the 7th and final game of this rapid play tournament over the board. There are 3 of us on 5 out of 6 points at this point. I'm playing one of those players in this final game. Now, the other player on 5 points quite quickly into their game, because they're sitting on board 2 next to me. It's not too long into their game that I hear them agree to a draw. So that player actually ends up on 5.5 points. So this game that we're playing on board 1, it really is a case of whoever wins this game goes on to be the sole person on 6 points in the tournament and win the tournament. So the game started E4 and D6. So new opening, possibly going for a kind of Pirc setup. D4, knight F6, maybe a Philidor. Like, this is a structure I've played with black in the past after knight C3. Like, I like to play E5 here, but my opponent went for the more common G6, so going for like a Pirc setup. Now, very easy setup you can go for against this is what I went for in the game. Pieces like this, castle, queenside, launch the pawns up the board and go for a quick kingside attack. Really hard to defend against. So you start off with F3 here. The point is you want to play bishop E3, which you can do. It's fine to do that, but you need to be prepared for this move knight G4 and know how to continue against it. Now, this move knight G4 here is not the best, but you do need to know some lines here with white. The simpler way to do this is to throw in F3 first and just make sure it's not a possibility. So opponent went bishop G7, bishop E3 now that knight cannot kick the bishop on either of these squares. Castles and queen D2. And the very simple idea is we're going to look to trade off this strong defending bishop, launch our H pawn up the board and go for a quick checkmating attack. Very simple idea. E5. And I paused here. My instinct here was that because our plan is to attack on the flanks, so our plan is to attack on the side of the board, my instinct here was that we want to keep the centre of the board closed. Because typically when you attack on the flanks, the opponent's response should be to counter-attack in the centre. So my instinct here was to close the centre. Computer doesn't think it's the best move, but white does still have an advantage here. So I quite liked this move. Opponent went queen to E7. I wasn't quite sure what the idea behind it was. And now I castled queenside. And it's a very simple plan that white's going for. So they went rook to D8. Again, I wasn't too sure what the idea was here. Maybe they're looking to break with C6, hoping for this and trying to push through this far, but I really wasn't sure that this did anything. I went for bishop H6 now, which is not the best. The computer prefers G4, but I think bishop H6 is fine. The idea is that you want to put the bishop on H6 first before launching the H pawn, because if you go the H pawn first, they can respond with H5, which is still very good. Just a slightly different attack you have to go for now. The idea now would be to get the knight into G5 and have a lot of pressure that way. In the long term here, you can go for things like G4, pawn takes, sacking that pawn and then pushing on with H5. I decided to go for something a lot simpler in this game. Bishop H6 directly, the point being now that when we go H4, they can't respond with H5. So they played C6, H4, C takes, and I wasn't sure how I wanted to respond to this in the game. My instinct was that I wanted to respond by taking with the knight, because I want to use all of my pieces in some way, and if this queenside knight could trade itself off for one of black's key defenders, that felt like a net win for me. My concern here was that if I take with the knight, take back, and I'm forced to recapture with the pawn because this queen is needed to defend here. I didn't want to take back with the pawn because it seemed to me that in this line, this D6 pawn was going to be really weak and could be a long-term target for me. So I didn't want to close that file. So what I decided to go for here was to take this bishop first and kind of switch plans, kind of move away from my plan to get this quick attack on the king side and now to take with the knight and saying I'm blockading this weak pawn on D6. Now, the computer doesn't love this. The computer found something much better than this, but I thought this made a lot of sense in a human, from a human point of view. My opponent went for queen E6 here, just trying to add more attackers to this knight, but what I think they just missed is bishop C4 lining up with the queen. And now this is tactically very scary for my opponent. It's already a bad position for them here, but they completely overlooked the idea. They went knight C6 and just allowed knight B6. Attacking the queen, knight defends the bishop, also attacking the rook. and it's just a lost position now. They decided to save the queen, but after we get the rook, we're just completely winning here. And this was finally a game in the tournament where I felt like I had a clean game. Apart from not finding the best plan earlier, even though I thought it was a very human plan, this is quite a clean game. Now we're just trying to convert this. Bishop e6. Decided to trade off a pair of pieces. They took with the pawn because they don't want to let my knight back out. They want to keep this defense of that knight. Knight h3. And one of my points here is that they don't necessarily have time to get this knight back because my queen's going to infiltrate. That's the annoying thing for them. So here, for example, this is still completely winning. We're still up material and they've got these to deal with. This should be an easy win from here. So they don't take the knight yet. I think a better idea here is probably to get rid of the weakness first. Maybe play d5 first and then get the knight in the corner. I'm not sure what was going on here with this move. I think they're just trying to line up against the king and hope for the best. Maybe their plan is to play knight here and try to double up on this point. But I just invade straight away. Queen takes. They pretty much have to trade queens, it looks like. They do trade queens. And go for knight d4. So this is just desperate at this point, which really needs to stop with c3. Knight to b5. Rook takes here. They finally get the knight in the corner, but now it's just a game of conversion. We are up and exchange, and we're up a couple of pawns. So it's just being careful from here. I'll show you the rest of the game, but there's nothing too interesting from this point. We've got another pawn. Kick this knight. Attack the knight. Save the rook with check. Get another pawn. Save the rook. Get another pawn. Defend the rook. I thought this was this was a nice point. Just trying to use all of your pieces. That's the point. I could have just moved this rook away from the attack, but bringing another piece towards the king, I thought it was a nice idea. Rook b8. We stopped annotating here, but the game went something like this. Invade, knight check, run away, knight back, move, save the rook, check, run away. Always making sure I'm staying on an opposite colour to this knight, so I'm trying to avoid any surprising checks. Knight d3, and I think I found, a nice tactic here just to force the game to end a bit early. Sack the rook in the corner, just to force an exchange of rooks. So king moves, get this rook, and just forcing another exchange of pieces and just comfortably converting into a winning endgame where we're going to make a pass pawn on the queen side. So we did manage to win this game. We finished the tournament on 6 points. Second place finished on 5.5. So we did win the tournament outright. And it just goes to show. So we've won this tournament with 6 out of 7. 5 wins and 2 draws. Now I started the tournament with about something like 1570 rating. And after 6 wins out of 7, only gaining about 15 rating points. And just to put it into perspective, the game that I drew in game number 6 against a much lower rated player, I actually lost 8 rating points for that game. And the games that I won gained very, very little. And it just goes to show this point that in this kind of ecosystem, it is very hard to gain rating points. And at the 1600 threshold, when you move up into the next tier of tournament, into the major competition, when everyone is rated much higher than you, then that's when I'm expecting to kind of accelerate through this rating climb. But for now, we actually finished the tournament with just under 1600 rating for ECF Rapid. Hopefully going to still be eligible to play the major tournament next time rather than playing the intermediate again. And then I'm hoping we're going to see some real fast gains in terms of rating. So, summary of the tournament as a whole. Even though we won the tournament and we were undefeated, I think there were a lot of times when we were in losing positions and got lucky. I'm really not happy with the way I played overall. I think there was a very big sign here that converting the skill set from playing online to over the board is actually quite difficult. Everything just looks a bit different. Everything feels a bit different. And it's quite surprising the things and the ideas that I missed playing over the board, which when looking back during the online analysis seemed really obvious to me. Want to do a little bit more over the board practice because of that. Going to continue with my league classical games going into next season. Hopefully going to upload some of those games. So for now, yes, we've won the tournament and we're going to be getting back to our Caro-Kann pawn structure series. Thank you for watching and see you next time.